Whenever you try to get an account at Yahoo or at Facebook, you have to type these distorted characters. That's a CAPTCHA. And it turns out that I was one of the people who helped invent that, and that was about 12 years ago. And the reason we originally, oh, and by the way, the reason that thing is there is to make sure that you, the entity filling out the form, are actually a human and not some sort of computer program that was written to submit the form millions of times. And the reason it works is because humans have no trouble reading these distorted characters, but computer programs can't do it as well yet. Now, this was originally, the reason we originally developed this was because Yahoo at the time had a huge problem, and it was that there were people who would write computer programs to obtain millions of email accounts for free. So Yahoo has a free email service. There were these people who would write computer programs to obtain millions of email accounts for free, and the reason they wanted to do that was to, in order to send spam. So the thing is, if you're a spammer and you want to send spam from Yahoo accounts, you run into the problem that each Yahoo account only allows you to send like 100 messages a day. So if you want to send 10 billion spam messages per day, you have to obtain millions of email accounts from which you can send spam. So the solution that we came up with was a test to distinguish whether the entity filling out the form is actually a human and not a computer program. So, I mean, after that, when we started working on that about 12 years ago, basically every major website has started using a CAPTCHA. So you see them, on Google, all the Microsoft properties, Yahoo, Facebook, every major website has started using it. And it turns out that approximately 200 million of these CAPTCHAs are typed every day by people around the world. So from CAPTCHA, at some point we realized this thing that about 200 million times a day somebody types a CAPTCHA throughout the world. And the first time I heard this, I was quite proud of myself. I thought, look at the impact that my research has had. But then I started feeling bad, because the thing is, each time you type a CAPTCHA, essentially you waste about 10 seconds of your time. It takes about 10 seconds to type a CAPTCHA. And if you multiply that by 200 million, you get that humanity as a whole is wasting about 500,000 hours every day typing these annoying CAPTCHAs. So then I started feeling bad, and I started wondering if there's any way in which we can use this effort for something that is good for humanity. See, the thing is, during those 10 seconds while you're typing a CAPTCHA, your brain is doing something amazing. Your brain is doing something that computers cannot yet do very well. So the question is, can we get you to do something useful? Another way of putting it is there some humongous problem that we cannot yet get computers to do or to solve, such that we can split into tiny 10-second chunks, and whenever somebody solves a CAPTCHA, they solve a little bit of this problem? And the answer to that is yes, and this is what we are doing now with a new project called reCaptcha, where the idea is that nowadays with reCaptcha, not only are you authenticating yourself as a human when you type a CAPTCHA, but also you're helping us to digitize books. And the way that works is as follows. So there's a lot of projects out there trying to digitize books. So Google has one, the Internet Archive has one, and basically you're taking all these old books that were written in physical form and scanning them. Now, scanning a book, the way the digitization works is first you scan a book. Now, scanning a book is like taking a digital photograph of every page of the book. It's just taking a photograph of every page of the book, which gives you an image of every page of the book. The next step of the process is that the computer needs to be able to decipher all of the words in that image, and that's done using a technology called OCR, for optical character recognition, which basically takes images of text in it and tries to extract what the text is in there. The problem is that for older books where the ink has faded, the computer cannot recognize a lot of the words in there. The OCR program just cannot recognize a lot of the words. So what we're doing now is we're taking all of the words that the computer cannot recognize in the book digitization process, and we're getting people to read them for us while they type a CAPTCHA on the internet. So these, next time you type a CAPTCHA, the words, the distorted words that you have to type are actually words that are coming directly from books that the computer could not recognize. So that's a more general idea called human computation, which is a field, sort of kind of a subfield of computer science that I have been trying to develop for the last 8 or 9 years, and other people in computer science have also been trying to develop it. And basically there we're trying to find the problems that computers cannot yet do. Turns out there's a lot of things computers cannot yet do, despite movies in Hollywood telling you otherwise. Computers, there's a lot of really, really simple things computers cannot yet do. So we get those problems that computers cannot do, and we try to get people to solve them for us while they do other things on the internet. So another example is another project that I worked on, which is called the ESP Game, and later called the Google Image Labeler, which the basic idea was computers cannot recognize what are the contents of images. An arbitrary image, a computer cannot tell you that this image has a dog or a cat or whatever. But being able to label the contents of images on the internet is very important. For example, it allows for image search. So if you go to Google, for example, you type a word like dog and get back a lot of images related to the word dog. Now, since there's no computer program out there that can tell you whether an arbitrary image from the web contains a dog or not, the way Google Images used to work is by searching through the file names. So if you search for dog, you get back a lot of images named dog.jpg or dog.gif. And the problem with this method is that it didn't work very well. So what we did is, since computers could not recognize what was inside images, what we did is we turned the process into something that people want to do. And we created a game. It was called the ESP Game, and then later, after it became part of Google, it became the Google Image Labeler. And this was a game that people really, really wanted to play. And as people played, they actually told Google what were the contents of images on the web. And using those tags, Google improved their image search engine. Yeah, so the idea here was, we started by, we had a huge problem, which was try to label or tag all images on the web. Computers cannot do it, so the next step is, how can we get people to do it? And there's a lot of ways in which you can imagine getting people to do it. One way is you could pay them. You could pay a lot of people to label all images on the web. The problem with that is that it would be really expensive. So what we did instead is we turned the process into a really fun game, which was able to get literally millions of people playing the game. And as they were playing, they were actually labeling or tagging all images on the web. Some people really, really loved it. There were people who played over 40 hours a week. Many people who played over 20 hours a week. I mean, we just have a lot of people that played many, many, many hours. Duolingo is the latest project I'm working on. I've been working on that for about 2 years. And here's how it started. So we started by thinking, how can we translate the whole web into every major language? So, right now the web is partitioned into multiple languages. A very large fraction of it is in English. And if you don't know English, you can't access that. And also, there are many other parts in other languages. And if you don't know those languages, you can't access that content. So we started with the question, how can we translate all the content into every major language? Now, first, we tried to see if we could use computer translation. So machine translation, it's gotten better over the last few years. Computers can now translate relatively simple sentences. But if you really, really want to translate everything in a way that is actually correct and readable, it turns out computers cannot yet do it very well. So just computers cannot translate very well yet. So then we started thinking, how can we get people to translate the whole web into every major language? And we don't just want 10 people to help us translate the web. We want literally millions of people to help us translate the web into every major language, because the web is huge. So we really want to translate the whole thing. So we started thinking, how do we motivate people to do this? And one possibility is you could try to pay them. You could try to hire professional language translators to translate the whole web. The problem is that would be extremely, extremely expensive. I mean, for example, just translating Wikipedia, which is a tiny fraction of the whole web, would cost over $50 million just to one other language. If you wanted to translate Wikipedia just to one other language, it would be super expensive. And the whole web, it would be literally billions, if not trillions of dollars. So we started thinking, how can we motivate people to do this for free, to help translate the web, to do this for free? And we started thinking, how can we do this? And we realized that if this is what we want to do, there are two pretty major obstacles. So one is a lack of bilinguals. I don't even know if there's all that many bilinguals. I mean, there's just not that many bilinguals in the world that can help us translate. And then the other problem is, how do we motivate people to do something for free when it's something that normally they get paid to do? And it turns out that we figured out there's a way to actually solve both of these problems with the same solution. That is, there's like a way to kill two birds with one stone. And that is to transform language translation into something that millions of people want to do and that also helps with the problem of lack of bilinguals, and that is language education. Today there are over 1 billion people in the world learning a foreign language. So what we've been working on is this project called Duolingo, where the idea is that in Duolingo you learn a foreign language. It's a language learning website, but as you learn, at the same time, you're also helping to translate the web. So basically you learn by doing, you learn by translating websites. So the way it works is at the very beginning, when you're just a beginner, you get very simple sentences to translate from the web. And as you're translating them, you get better at it, and so we give you more and more complex sentences, and you're basically getting better at the language at the same time as you're translating stuff. And it turns out it really works. So this is we're about to open this up right now. We've released it and it's in private beta, and people are really loving it, and the translations are super accurate.